Good morning. This is Omni, Balanced News Perspectives. Today is February 26, 2026. U.S. and Iran begin third round of indirect nuclear talks in Geneva amid massive U.S. military buildup in the Middle East. We'll cover what happened, how different viewpoints frame it, so you can decide for yourself. First, here are the top stories of the day. U.S. and Iran hold indirect nuclear talks in Geneva. U.S. and Iranian negotiators are meeting in Geneva for a third round of indirect talks, mediated by Oman, amid a U.S. military buildup in the Middle East to pressure Iran. The discussions follow Israel's attacks on Iran last year, which sparked a war with airstrikes. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio highlighted Iran's reluctance to discuss ballistic missiles as a major issue. Across perspectives, coverage frames these talks as a potential de-escalation point after heightened tensions from recent conflicts, with some outlets emphasizing the U.S.'s strategic military pressure as a bargaining tool, while others note Iran's warnings of retaliation if talks fail. Reports weave in the broader regional instability, portraying Oman as a neutral mediator vulnerable to escalation, and highlight uncertainty over U.S. actions if negotiations collapse. Discussions also touch on the talks' timing, linking them to past failed attempts and the risk of wider Middle East involvement, including potential strikes on Israel. Question to consider: how might the U.S. military presence influence the outcome of these indirect talks? Next, Hillary Clinton to testify in Epstein investigation. Hillary Clinton is scheduled to testify before the House Oversight Committee on her ties to Jeffrey Epstein, with the deposition film but held behind closed doors. Bill Clinton is set to testify the next day. This follows the release of Epstein files and ongoing scrutiny of high-profile connections. Across perspectives, media portrayals blend scrutiny of the Clintons' past associations with Epstein as part of a broader accountability push, while some highlight complaints of unfair targeting to distract from Trump's own Epstein links. Reports integrate this with political tensions, noting the closed-door format and contrasting it with calls for public testimony. Coverage also ties it to wider investigations, framing it as a moment for transparency amid partisan divides. Question to consider: how might the closed-door format affect public perception of the testimony? Meanwhile, Supreme Court ruling prompts tariff refund demands. Following a Supreme Court decision invalidating Trump's emergency tariffs, a Democratic senator is pressuring for refunds of over $100 billion in collected revenue. Trump insists trade deals remain safe despite the ruling. This has stalled some trade talks and created confusion. Across perspectives, outlets describe the ruling as a blow to Trump's tariff authority, with some viewing refund demands as a push for accountability, while others see Trump's response as downplaying impacts on global partners. Coverage weaves in economic concerns, portraying it as part of broader trade policy debates amid midterm elections. Reports also note potential effects on U.S. manufacturing and consumer costs. Question to consider: how will this ruling affect ongoing U.S. trade negotiations? Also in the mix today, Kenyan police arrest man for trafficking fighters to Russia. Kenyan authorities arrested and charged a man for trafficking 25 Kenyans to fight in Russia's war in Ukraine. Over 1,000 Kenyans have been recruited, with families protesting disappearances and deaths. He remains in custody. Across perspectives, reports frame this as part of broader recruitment issues in Africa, highlighting government revelations and family protests against exploitation. Coverage integrates concerns over Russia's foreign fighter strategies, portraying Kenya's response as a crackdown amid international scrutiny. Some outlets link it to economic desperation, driving such trafficking. Question to consider: how might this affect Kenya-Russia relations? Here's another one to watch. Nigeria to hold inquest into death of author's toddler. Nigeria will conduct an inquest into the death of Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's toddler. The writer accuses Yourcare Hospital of negligence, which it denies. This follows family complaints. Across perspectives, media present this as a high-profile case spotlighting healthcare accountability, with Adichie's accusations drawing attention to potential systemic issues in Nigerian hospitals. Reports weave in survivor stories and broader calls for reform, framing it neutrally amid denials from the hospital. Question to consider: what could the inquest reveal about hospital practices? Now, a quick scan of the world headlines, and one more story worth your attention. Hungary accuses Ukraine of oil blockade, deploys troops. Hungary claims Ukraine disrupted Russian oil supplies via the Druzhba pipeline, prompting troop deployments to energy facilities. Orbán called for an EU fact-finding mission including Hungarian and Slovak experts. Nordic countries are on alert for potential strikes on their energy infrastructure. Across perspectives, coverage depicts Hungary's response as escalating tensions with Ukraine, with some viewing it as political maneuvering amid elections, while others highlight broader European energy vulnerabilities. Reports integrate concerns over Russian influence and potential sabotage, framing the mission request as a diplomatic push. Question to consider: how could this affect EU-Russia energy relations? Next, Senegal's PM proposes tougher anti-LGBT law. Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko unveiled legislation to double penalties for same-sex relations to up to 10 years in prison. This follows recent arrests and international criticism. Ghana's FM urged Ukraine to release 2 Ghanaian POWs captured fighting for Russia. Across perspectives, outlets portray the proposal as intensifying anti-LGBTI+ measures in Senegal, drawing human rights concerns, while linking it to regional trends in Africa. Coverage includes calls for POW releases, framing them as humanitarian issues amid the Ukraine war. Question to consider: what impact might this have on LGBTQ+ rights in Africa? That's OmniView. For full source links and more context, open today's written briefing on the OmniView summaries page. As always, compare outlets, look for primary documents, and separate what's known from what's assumed.